Get ready for one of the Holy Bible's most extraordinary stories about resilience and leadership with the inspiring story of Nehemiah. From cupbearer to hero, this captivating narrative transcends time, bringing powerful lessons of overcoming, faith, and transformation. So buckle up your emotional belts, because we're about to explore the incredible feats of an ordinary man who became an extraordinary force. Nehemiah is a biblical character, an important figure in the post-exile history of the Jews, as recorded in the Bible, and who, it is believed, was the primary author of the book of Nehemiah. He was the son of Hakaliah, Nehemiah 2 verse 3, and probably belonged to the tribe of Judah. His ancestors resided in Jerusalem prior to his service in Persia, Nehemiah 2 verse 3. Nehemiah lived during the period when Judah was a province of the Achaemenid Empire, and had been appointed royal cupbearer in the palace of Susa, the king Artaxerxes I. Nehemiah, a common man and slave in Babylon, played the role of the king's cupbearer, serving wine to the most powerful monarch of the time. Although not all scholars agree on the topic, there is evidence, including textual, that Nehemiah was a eunuch. He certainly appears to have been seen as such in the later texts of Judaism. The Septuagint, a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, describes him as a eunuch. Furthermore, he served in the presence of both king and queen, which raises the possibility of having been castrated. On another day of work, in the midst of his routine, he receives a visit from his brother Hanani, who had returned from Judah, bringing alarming news about the condition of Jerusalem, the city that Nehemiah once called home. Hanan reports to Nehemiah that Jerusalem is in ruins, with its gates burned and the protective wall destroyed. Furthermore, many Jews who were not taken captive to Babylon live in great misery and contempt in the province. Nehemiah chapter 1. The city that was once prosperous and full of life was now in desolation. This shocking revelation awakens a mix of emotions in Nehemiah, including shock, sadness, and deep regret for the situation in his hometown. He, who was far from Jerusalem, now lives as a slave in Babylon, serving the king. The news of Jerusalem's destruction leads him to reflect on his roots, his identity, and his lost connection to his homeland. Upon understanding the extent of the disaster, Nehemiah finds himself faced with the need to act. His reaction is not only one of regret, but also one of inner awakening, recognizing the responsibility he feels for his city. He becomes an example of how an ordinary individual, even as a slave, can be driven by passion and commitment to restoring something that was once great. In this context, Nehemiah not only experiences the pain of loss, but also finds a deep motivation for action. The destruction of Jerusalem becomes the spark that ignites his desire to reform, rebuild, and restore not only the physical walls of the city, but also the hope and pride of its people. Faced with the overwhelming news about the condition of Jerusalem, Nehemiah does not just allow himself to be overcome by the initial shock. He gives into a deep grief, a sadness that transcends physical tears and reaches the depths of his soul. Deep inside, the impact of the destruction of his hometown resonates like a lament echoing through time. Nehemiah's response goes beyond simple tears. It is a lament that reflects a visceral commitment to the restoration of Jerusalem. He not only weeps for the torn down walls and burned doors, but also for the symbolic meaning that these elements represent for the Jewish people. Each tear shed is a silent testimony to your emotional and spiritual connection to the holy city. To express his sadness and seek divine intervention, Nehemiah adopts fasting and prayer practice. He does not hesitate to stand before the God of heaven, recognizing the need for divine guidance and supernatural strength to face the monumental task of reconstruction. His fasting is not just a physical abstinence, but an act of humility and submission, showing his total dependence on God. Nehemiah, still a captive in Babylon, prostrates himself in prayer, crying out for divine mercy on Jerusalem and its people. "Oh, Lord God of heaven, great and terrible God, who keeps covenant and kindness toward those who love him and keep his commandment. Let your ears therefore be attentive and your eyes open, to hear the prayer of your servant, which I pray before you today, day and night, for the children of Israel, your servants, and I make confession for the sins of the children of Israel, which we have committed against you. I also and my father's house have sinned. We have completely corrupted ourselves against you, and have not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the judgments, which you commanded Moses your servant. Remember therefore the word which you commanded Moses your servant, saying, You will transgress, and I will scatter you among the peoples, and you will return to me, and you will keep my commandments and do them. Then, even though your rejected ones are at the end of heaven, from there I will gather them and bring them to the place that I have chosen to make my name dwell there. They are your servants and your people whom you rescued with your great strength and with your strong hand. Oh, Lord, let your ears therefore be attentive to the prayer of your servant, and to the prayer of your servants who desire to fear your name, and make your servant prosperous today, and give him favor before this man. Nehemiah 1 verses 5 to 11. He seeks not only solace from his own pain, but also the wisdom and courage needed to lead the rebuilding effort. His dialogue with the God of heaven transcends words. It is a sincere expression of trust and faith in the midst of adversity and surrender to mourning, and the fervent search for divine intervention through fasting and prayer. These foundational elements reveal not only Nehemiah's strength of character, but also the depth of his spirituality in the face of adversity. The central message resonates with a universal truth: all reform, whether personal, social, or spiritual, begins from a deep sense of grief, a visceral recognition of the pressing need for change. Nehemiah, in experiencing this grief upon learning of Jerusalem's ruin, embodies this fundamental principle. Nehemiah's grief is not just a passing lament. It is a powerful catalyst that propels you to action. His grief is not passive but active, becoming a driving force for reform. When we are faced with areas of our lives that need restoration, it is this genuine grief that empowers us to face the difficulties and begin the process of transformation. The house renovation analogy mentioned by Nehemiah when comparing the situation in Jerusalem to the renovation of his own residence highlights the need to confront uncomfortable realities. Just as the house he purchased was in disrepair, our lives, families, and communities may require a critical overhaul to reach their full potential. This story highlights the importance of internalizing grief, not only recognizing areas of need, but also deeply feeling the urgency for change. This goes beyond simple dissatisfaction. It is a call to action grounded in empathy, compassion, and a genuine desire to see positive transformation. The idea that grief is the starting point for any reform resonates not only in the story of Nehemiah, but in countless narratives throughout history. It can be observed in social movements, personal revolutions, and community renewal effort. Recognition of grief is the starting point for building a more promising future. After being deeply impacted by grief at the destruction of Jerusalem, Nehemiah does not remain inert. He turns to prayer and fasting as fundamental strategies for seeking divine guidance and the strength needed to rebuild the city. This search for God's will is not just an isolated event in Nehemiah's life, but rather an ongoing practice. He demonstrates a spiritual sensitivity and a constant dependence on the divine in every phase of his plan to rebuild Jerusalem. The narrative reveals to us a Nehemiah who does not rely solely on his own abilities or limited resources, but who recognizes the importance of connecting with the God of heaven. He understands that rebuilding Jerusalem goes beyond a physical undertaking. It is a spiritual journey that demands wisdom, discernment, and divine intervention. The act of fasting, in addition to being a spiritual practice, symbolizes Nehemiah's personal sacrifice and renunciation for the sake of a greater purpose. By giving up his physical needs in favor of fasting, he demonstrates commitment and humility before God. This abstinence is not just a formality, but a tangible expression of your devotion and sincere desire to seek the divine will. Nehemiah's prayer is not just a list of petitions, but an intimate and constant dialogue with the God of heaven. He seeks not just practical solutions, but a deeper understanding of the divine plan for the restoration of Jerusalem. Nehemiah seeks heavenly guidance every step of the way, trusting in the superior wisdom that only God can provide. Nehemiah's strategy, based on prayer and fasting, highlights the importance of seeking the divine before beginning any significant undertaking. His approach is not impulsive, but rather carefully planned through communion with God. This also underscores the idea that true leadership begins with dependence on something greater than human capabilities. Even surrounded by fear and uncertainty, Nehemiah emerges as a remarkable hero as he courageously leads the reconstruction of Jerusalem, transforming the city from ruins into a symbol of hope and resilience. His initial fear, when facing the king with the news of Jerusalem's destruction, is palpable. Nehemiah, although an ordinary man, does not hide his insecurities given the magnitude of the task at hand. However, his courage is evident in the way he decides to face the king, presenting his request despite fears of royal displeasure. So it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, that wine was set before him, and I took the wine and gave it to the king, but I had never been sad before him. And the king said unto me, Why is thy face sad, seeing thou art not sick? This is nothing but sadness of heart. So I feared greatly. And he said to the king, Long live the king forever. How would my face not be sad, when the city, the place of my father's tombs, was devastated, and its gates were consumed by fire? And the king said to me, What do you ask of me now? So I prayed to the God of heaven. And he said to the king, If it please the king, and if your servant is accepted in your presence, I pray you, send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it. Nehemiah 2 verse 1-5. If it seems well to the king, let me be given letters to the governors beyond the river, so that they may allow me to pass until I reach Judah, as well as a letter to Asaph, keeper of the king's forest, to give me wood to cover the doors of the palace of the house, for the wall of the city, and for the house that I will enter. Nehemiah 2 verse 7 and 8. News of their imminent mission spreads, arousing resistance from figures such as Sanballat and Tobias, who viewed any effort to strengthen the city with suspicion. The opposition was not just verbal, but also involved threats and strategies to undermine Nehemiah's effort. However, in the midst of this challenging scenario, Nehemiah does not give in to despair or anxiety. Your patience, combined with your unshakable faith in God, becomes a vital anchor that sustains you in the face of storms of adversity. Resistance against the reconstruction of the walls is not only physical, but also psychological, with attempts to undermine the morale and determination of the people. However, Nehemiah, with a clear vision of his divine mission, does not allow himself to be shaken. He becomes an example of resilient leadership, resisting the wiles of his opponents with wisdom and trust in God. Nehemiah's transformation from slave to leader is a testament to his inner strength and determination. He did not allow adverse circumstances to paralyze him. Instead, he boldly embraced the challenge. Upon arrival in Jerusalem, Nehemiah began to plan his reconstruction project. And I came to Jerusalem, and was there 3 days. And I arose in the night, I and a few men with me, and declared to no one what my God had put in my heart to do in Jerusalem. And there was no animal with me except the one on which I was riding. And by night I went out by the gate of the valley, and by the fountain of the dragon, and by the gate of the dunghill, and beheld the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken, and the gates thereof, which had been consumed by fire. And I passed to the fountain gate, and to the king's pool, and there was no place where the animal he was riding could pass. Still, at night I went up the stream and looked at the wall, and turning I entered through the valley gate. So I came back, and the magistrates did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, for he had not yet declared anything to the Jews, nor to the priests, nor to the nobles, nor to the magistrates, nor to those who did the work. Nehemiah 2 verse 11-16. His leadership stands out not only for his practical ability to command physical reconstruction, but also for the inspiration he instills in the people. In leading the reconstruction, Nehemiah faces significant resistance. Characters like Sanballat and Tobiah try to discourage him, questioning the legitimacy of his efforts and seeking to undermine his authority. These challenges highlight the true essence of Nehemiah's leadership, which does not waver in the face of adversity, but finds strength in the conviction of its purpose. Upon arriving in Jerusalem, Nehemiah faces the difficult task of leading the rebuilding of the walls. His strategic approach, combined with his ability to motivate and inspire the people, results in an extraordinary feat: the completion of the walls in an incredible 52 days. This triumph is not just an architectural achievement, but a testimony to God's power in response to Nehemiah's patience, faith, and determination. The Bible in Nehemiah chapter 3 reveals how Nehemiah employs practical strategies to overcome obstacles. He organizes people into teams, distributes tasks, and implements security measures to protect workers against possible attack. His leadership is not limited to just grand vision, but includes pragmatic actions to face the everyday challenges of reconstruction. The city, which once lay in desolation, now witnesses a stunning transformation under Nehemiah's leadership. The walls, once burned, are restored, and the doors, once destroyed, are rebuilt. The city is resurfacing not only physically, but also as a symbol of spiritual and community resurgence. His courage manifests itself not only on the physical front, facing opposition from Sanballat, Tobiah, and other critics, but also in his ability to inspire courage in his people. Nehemiah, by leading by example, encourages workers to overcome fear and uncertainty, cultivating an atmosphere of cooperation and mutual trust. Nehemiah's determination is evident in the extraordinary speed with which the walls are rebuilt. In such a short period of time, he not only overcomes physical challenges, but also manages complex logistical issues and maintains an unwavering focus on the end goal. His determination is an inspiration to everyone facing seemingly impossible tasks. Nehemiah not only leads the material reconstruction, but also plays a crucial role in restoring the people's morale and confidence. He becomes a catalyst for unity, inspiring others to overcome their fears and uncertainties to contribute to the rebirth of Jerusalem. In addition to physical reconstruction, Nehemiah embraces the opportunity to promote religious and economic reforms in the Jewish community. His leadership is not limited to the sphere of construction, but extends to deeper transformations. He understands that the complete restoration of Jerusalem requires not only physical walls, but also spiritual and economic revitalization. In the religious sphere, Nehemiah seeks to restore the observance of the Sabbath and holy days, recognizing the importance of following God's laws and commandments. He faces the challenge of combating complacency and spiritual neglect, reminding people of the need to maintain a just and godly relationship with the Creator. In economic terms, Nehemiah establishes a tithing system and appoints faithful men to ensure fair distribution to God's servant. His approach not only alleviates the economic difficulties faced by the community, but also establishes justice and equity as fundamental pillars in resource management. In Nehemiah's epic journey, we witness the transformation of an ordinary man into an extraordinary hero. His story transcends the ancient pages and stands as a beacon of inspiration for those facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. Nehemiah embodies the human capacity to rise above fear and uncertainty, finding strength in faith, determination, and courageous leadership. Nehemiah, a simple cupbearer in Babylon, receiving the devastating news of the destruction of his beloved Jerusalem. This moment of deep grief triggers a series of events that reveal not only Nehemiah's resilience, but also the fundamental importance of recognizing the need for change when seeking strategy in prayer and fasting. His approach not only highlights his deep spiritual connection, but also offers a timeless lesson about how seeking divine guidance can positively impact large-scale projects. Despite initial fear and uncertainty, Nehemiah emerges as a formidable leader during the rebuilding of Jerusalem. His courage in the face of opposition, his ability to organize the people, and his inspiring vision transformed not only the physical landscape of the city, but also the spirit of the community. Nehemiah becomes a hero who transcends the barriers of time, leaving a legacy of overcoming and exemplary leadership. Nehemiah's narrative is not just the story of a wall builder, but the story of a visionary leader who, in the face of physical and spiritual rubble, seized the opportunity to rebuild a stronger, more just community. Their courage, determination, and leadership are the catalysts that transform not only the physical structures of Jerusalem, but also the spiritual and economic fabric of its community. Nehemiah's story resonates as a timeless invitation to lead with courage, determination, and vision, seeking not only material progress, but also spiritual and social renewal. Nehemiah, the unlikely hero, continues to inspire generations, reminding us that every challenge is an opportunity for true transformation. If you like the story of Nehemiah and want to make it known to your friends, share this video, leave a like, and if you want to know stories of other biblical characters, just access the Biblical Curiosities channel and enjoy and subscribe to the channel.